clicker. That's not necessary.
There it is.
Turn that all off. Okay. We're floating. Hey, welcome back to the ShoeBox show. This is Keegan Van Hook, your host. Today I have Josh Stirm back once again. Woo. Just he and I out here in the lovely Duncan's Garden, some secret place in Ashland that you got to go up Walker Street to find. It's up here. It's a cool place. I recommend it.
There's a stream right next to us. It's very placid.
Yep, you're definitely hearing that. But looks like everything is good with our recording quality, so we're off.
I'm gonna turn this down. So I hate watching the waveform create itself while you're recording. It's like stressful. You're like, don't overload it. Don't make it distort.
Sick. Well, Josh and I have recently been collaborating quite a bit on a number of things, namely the aforementioned, possibly on this show. I don't know if I've actually talked about the Alvor Desert documentary on this audio program before.
First plug.
Yeah, first plug. So I'm making a documentary similar to the Cornucopia Project, this time about the Alvor Desert of Eastern Oregon. And Josh was kind enough to assist me in mixing together a soundtrack for it, which is really exciting because having custom music, unique music, something made by a person, is really just it brings a lot of value to the project. So thanks for helping me out with that. But
oh, of course. It's my pleasure. I've always wanted to do that. I think it's fun to be able to create stuff. Like, especially because Keegan met up with like was it marimba?
Yeah.
With a marimba player?
Yep.
And what was her name?
Emily Lindley.
Emily and Lindley.
Yep.
She recorded some marimba stuff with Keegan, and then he brought it to me, and then I added some synth stuff on top of it. And it was like a very weird way to sort of like make music, because I've never really done that before. Like, I've never like added stuff on top of something that already existed. If anything, it's like I'm more used to like either making it all from scratch or starting like making the initial kernel and then having other people build on it. Right. So that was like a fun challenge to try and like put stuff on top of something someone else had already made.
Yeah, she did a really great job with all of that stuff.
Yeah, if you're listening, Emily, I only know you because of your recordings on this, and they're great. Good job. You're
a rock star. And so that's the other 50% of the soundtrack. It's kind of a mix between using the marimba music as I guess I should go back and actually like tell the story of how I even decided on how the soundtrack was going to sound.
Yeah.
Because I just got back after spring break from filming the documentary, and I had really no plan of how it was going to all come together. I just had a bunch of footage. And then I was working the Ashland Independent Film Festival preview night, which is like the initial event of the Ashland Independent Film Festival, where they like show all of the trailers for the movies that are going to be like on display. And ahead of the show, they had like this music performance where it was who I eventually learned was Emily Lindley, and then her like musical partner Patrick. And while I was like setting up for all of our like televising stuff, she was practicing, and it's like the most haunting music ever. It was one of those crazy moments where like someone's music really catches your ear and you're like, that is perfect.
That's exactly what I need.
Right. It was exactly what I needed. And so I just went and asked her about it after the show and like got in touch with her over email, and we talked back and forth for a few weeks and finally set it up and did a recording. So that's like 50% of the soundtrack is this very slow, eerie, spacey kind of marimba music.
It's super spooky. It's like surprising. Like, I always think the marimba sounds kind of like, I don't know, it has like this weird sort of muted quality to it, where it's like, it's sort of spooky but open sounding, which is like a desert.
Yeah.
It's like the best. Yeah, totally.
So the idea is that the marimba music is going to kind of represent the natural parts of this desert exploration, and then the music that Josh created is going to be sort of the side of the whole thing that's like the story of Louis Bankston and I and our explorations. So we have like a theme song now that's really cool and sounds sick. It's like some surf rock. I might interlace some of that music into this recording as well, or edit it in just so you can hear some samples of it, because it does sound really cool. Yeah, we created several tracks. It's like really, really cool.
Yeah, there's one that's like marimba that I put synth on top of, which was just like the weirdest.
Yeah.
It's so weird. And then we did another one on your computer that was like just synth and like sort of like sounded like a drum machine. The one that's like sounds like a horse like galloping or whatever. And then we made a few at my house that were like synth and like drum samples and guitar and stuff. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I don't know. It's been fun to sort of make music for a different like application than normally what I would do.
Oh, it's been really fun to like watch how music is made because I'm incredibly ignorant about audio stuff. Part of the reason I do this is to try and like learn more about how all that works. But I absolutely have no musical chops whatsoever. And so
have you
I've
ever played an instrument?
Never in my I should. I did play clarinet in middle school.
Dude, clarinet's hard.
Clarinet, I don't know why I chose that. In retrospect, I should have chose some other instrument, but I played clarinet because
clarinet's pretty cool.
I think my friend had picked clarinet. Like, it was a thing of we were all in the like middle school band and we had to pick an instrument. And my friend at the time, he's still a friend of mine actually, a bunch of my friends had picked clarinet, and so I also picked clarinet so that we could like sit in the same row.
Yeah.
And like
there's like I feel like everyone that was in middle school band had like has that same story of like, yeah, my friend played trombone, so I started playing trombone, and look at me now. I'm like the first chair in whatever, the opera or whatever.
Except in my case, I really didn't connect with it at all. And like, it was like a painful struggle to ever get me to play the clarinet or practice it. So I never picked up any musical skills from that. And then I tried a few years ago to learn how to play ukulele, but I don't know. It's just one of those things that's very hard for me to learn how to do.
Totally.
And I especially have no clue about like modern music production, like what actually goes into doing, creating music in the modern format and that contains like all the depth that modern music does. And so it's just been really cool to like watch that whole process go down, as well as, it peels back the layers of listening to your stuff. I'm like, oh, I kind of see how all of this is formed now.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's always fun to watch people like do their thing that they know how to do that I do not.
It's funny. I always feel like I've had, there have been a couple times where like, because I have a new, like that setup in my room that I have right now, the like desk with like the speakers and everything is relatively new. I've been wanting for like years to have like a spot in my room or just in my house somewhere, or even not in my house, just a spot somewhere that's just like my like quote unquote studio space.
Yeah.
But I just haven't been able to get it together until like within the last like 9 months or so.
Right.
And so I've really only recently started making music in that space, and it's like, I don't know, it's really nice. And there have been a couple times where people have come over and we've sort of done the thing that you and I have done where we like sit together and maybe like bang out some kind of project. But it's always funny, it's such a different, like, I don't know, it's such a different vibe to like working with yourself. It's like, or working by yourself. Like, it's so fun to sort of like, I don't know, just kind of attack it from both angles.
Totally. Yeah. I mostly work alone with my movie making stuff, like the Cornucopia project I did with Lewis, like to film it, but then pretty much all of the researching and the editing and the production of it, or the post-production of it, went completely by myself. Like I was totally alone through it. So it's been refreshing on this Alvor Desert thing. I've actually had like help, because Josh has also been helping me here with some of the recording of the
voiceover.
The voiceovers and the informational segments that you'll see. Like, we're doing a lot with the green screen, and I'm using the Rogue Valley Community Television and Digital Media Center space to do all that, which kind of requires at least 2 people to like have, I guess I could like run and hit the record button and then run back, but it's like very convenient. It sucks to do, and like it's very nice to have the help of someone who is also kind of like a producer person in and of themselves. So that's been wonderful. Like, actually working with people.
Yeah, that's always a relief when you can like do it with other people and not be like in front of the recording medium and behind it at the same, like trying to hit record and then perform it, and then like I run into that all the time with like even in like the band, like when we record, it's like it sucks so bad to like you have to go over to the computer and hit record and then go and play the song and then go back, and then you're always frustrated because it's like, damn it, we didn't arm the tom mic or whatever, and
Right.
then it's all on you, and then if any mistakes that you make like affect the entire thing, like that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really stressful.
You end up running around a lot. You
Yeah.
have to do it on your own.
Some people prefer that, which like I kind of get, but it's a lot, I don't know, it's kind of fun to do it with other people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm learning to enjoy working with others quite a bit. That's fun.
It's
Lewis,
tough,
Lewis, as I mentioned before, he's actually coming down tomorrow. He'll be here. By the time this is out, he'll have been here for a few days. And so I'm starting to think he's actually going to have a much greater degree of involvement in the post-production of this movie.
Does he do film stuff too?
He's he does it through me basically. Like he's a physics major, and he mostly wants to work as like an outdoorsman, some kind of a naturalist profession.
Okay.
So he's not like a filmmaker in and of himself, but he's really into being involved in the making of these documentaries from like the perspective that he can sort of offer. That he's like good in the outdoors and entertaining on camera. So he's into it from that regard. And I think while he's here, I'm going to try and get him in front of the camera for at least one of those informational segments, because he's a great like orator as well. He's really good at saying words and like delivering lines and stuff like that. So I think it would be good to have him in on that as well. But I can't make any promises because, of course, I don't know what his whole MO is.
Everyone's gonna be like really excited to hear Lewis. You better get him in there now. Everyone's gonna be expecting it.
I have no doubt he'll be in there in some sense. It'll also just be nice to have him like over my shoulder while I'm editing sometimes. Just like, hey Lewis, look at this. That is going to be
what do you
invaluable.
think? Yeah,
right.
totally.
Like having him have that input. Yeah.
Has he in the past had like, has he been pretty a part of like the editing and stuff of the adventure?
Not with the
docs?
cornucopia. Not really, no. We've done some like video. Back in the day, we used to do a few videos together that we like edited some memes and like just was like, basically fucking around with Final Cut.
Totally.
But in terms of the actual like making of the documentaries, he pretty much just lets that be my thing. Like I do like all the editing and then like show him the results, and he always just goes, great. So it would be cool to have him looking over my shoulder a little more, helping me out, make some of the calls. I really think that this Alvord Desert movie is going to be another level up just in terms of like what I'm putting into it.
Yeah.
It's because I also am not rushing it. Like I don't feel any sense of it needs to be soon, that it gets put out there. I can wait on it for a while. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's like a good feeling. There was a quote I heard from, I've been listening to like just like so many podcasts about like music production and stuff lately.
Yeah.
And there was one, God, I can't remember who it was. Somebody pretty good and well known. Someone in one of these podcasts was talking, I think it was maybe Larry Crane from Tape Op. I don't remember. Someone was talking about that like when you're making like, he was talking about it in like the realm of making music.
Yeah.
But like when you're making an album, or in your case a documentary, a film, it's like one of the most detrimental things you can do to the project is to think about like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this when it's finished?
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes that can be like, a real bummer and can really make you feel uninspired or something to like overly like think about like, the marketing business shit while you're just trying to be creative and make something.
Totally.
So that's probably good to just wait on that.
I really do want this, like the Alvord Desert, because the Alvord Desert is a geographic location, is one of my favorite places in Oregon. I've already made a documentary about it, and it sucked. I hated it. And like you can't find it anymore. I stripped it from YouTube. I hated it so much, and I knew I was going to make a new one. And now it's like my favorite place in Oregon deserves like the attention of being what will end up being the documentary. I say like this is the best thing I've ever made.
Totally.
Because I say that about the Cornucopia project often, that it's the best thing I've ever made. But I think more, it's just the most involved thing I've ever made. Like
It's like the thing you've just put the most of yourself into.
And while it was well received, I already think it's not the best thing. Like I actually think
Totally.
my earlier movie about my car breaking down in the search of the bomb site in Brookings is still the best thing I've ever made. Like it just feels the best to watch.
But some of that was luck, right? Just that such crazy shit happened to you guys while you were doing it.
Totally. Yeah. So the Alvord Desert, I guess the intent is to be like my most forward artistic endeavor so far. It'll be the most like genuine to what I hope to be creating long term. So yeah.
Well, yeah.
So let's just talk about that second album. How's it coming?
Jeez. Oh geez.
If I didn't mention it, I probably should have introduced you better, but people who are watching the show as of now probably saw the others. This is Josh Stirm, who is the lead singer of the Juniper Berries, a locally pretty popular band here in Ashland. They have a good number of strong hits, at least in my opinion. But yeah, they're currently working on their second album, and it's sort of been one of those long-term, super involved projects as well.
Yeah, this one luckily still has only been about half the amount of time. We've only spent half the amount of time on it thus far that we spent on our last album.
Yeah.
And I think this one's already sounding better. So it's definitely not done. It's hard to like approximate how done it is, because like, I don't know. It's like I'm learning a lot as I'm mixing it. It's like we finished recording it like a few months ago. Like we did like the bulk of the recording we did in like 3 days at the beginning of January. Well, we did a session in August that was supposed to be sort of just demos. Right. We weren't really trying to we spent a long time getting sounds and stuff, but we didn't spend a ton of time on like, I don't know, worrying that it was going to be final recordings or whatever. But then some of the takes actually came from that session. And then we did another session in January, right when we got off tour, so that we would be like nice and tight. And we spent about 3 days in the RVTV studio there. And yeah, that's where we got most of the takes. And so everything's been mostly recorded. I've done a lot of overdubs and stuff, and we've like re-overdubbed synth and obviously vocals and some extra guitar and stuff. But most of it's been recorded for a while. It's just been like sort of shaping it from then until now. So about 5 months now, almost 6 months. But yeah, I keep being like, okay, this is probably pretty much done. And then I'll learn some like crazy new like trick. And then like I just like recently learned about this plugin for anyone that's a gear nerd that's looking to learn some audio tricks. There was this plugin that I actually heard about online called what was it? It's the Isotope Ozone Imager Stereo Width plugin. And if you just put that like on your master bus and like turn up the width, it just like, I don't know, it just sounds amazing. You should just go, it's a free plugin. You should just go download it and put it on your stuff. It sounds great. But yeah, I keep learning about all this stuff, so it's stretching it out, but I don't know when it'll be done.
Yeah. Tripp and I were talking about that on the last episode of this, which we also recorded here, talking about how projects end up getting extended seemingly in this period of life because you're constantly like learning new things all the time.
Yeah.
Like while you're still being educated, it can be kind of difficult to finalize anything because you get really close to feeling like it's finalized. And then, yeah, you like learn something that is new that you're like, oh.
I wish I'd done that.
And now I have to. Like you feel an obligation to go back and fix everything.
Yeah, it's tough because like I also think it's really valuable to be able to just like sort of make something and then slam it out, and then make something in a pretty quick amount of time, and then maybe you learn something from that, and then you apply that to the next thing. Like I think you can sort of do this same thing we're talking about in like multiple iterations of a product.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, it's also hard because it's like the next, you only get so much, like it's such a big project. You want the thing you're working on now to be really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's tough. It's really hard. I've been listening to a lot of like audio podcasts and stuff lately. And just talking to like friends of mine that do production work and stuff too. And it seems like a big thing that people are having a hard time with is like being really decisive. And like I think that's something that I want to try and work on right now, because it's like it's really easy to just like work on a project for a year and just like slave over it forever. But I also think that at a certain point it's good to just be like, well, I'm saying this is done. Yeah. And like even if I could wring out another little bit of prettiness from it or whatever, it's also important to just kind of stop.
Totally. Yeah, because that's like the bind, is that if you ever like I would hope to make a living off of this stuff one day, and I know you do as well, that if that was ever to be a reality, at some point you do have to like get into the mode of being able to crank things out, just like, you know, make a thing, and constantly release stuff.
Well, I think it's also different when you're under a deadline, I imagine. I mean, I've never been under a deadline for like music, but I imagine when people are like, okay, you have like a week to like, you have to have this done in a week. Like, I'm sure if someone said that to me, like, finish the Juniper Berries album by Monday, I probably would. You know, if you're under pressure, you'll just figure it out. And I think there's an element of that is beneficial too.
Totally. Yeah, when I do, well, okay, I'm hoping, I'm going to be working with a guy and making a documentary for him, as it turns out. And I'm hoping that he gives me a deadline, because I don't want to like do that to him. Like, be like, okay, dude, like, sweet, so we filmed it, like, I'll be back with you in like a year and a half.
Yeah, I know.
Like, no. The story behind that, though, is there's this artist in New York named Mark Tribe, who is doing a project called the New Nature Project, where his aim is to record 24 hours of straight footage in a natural setting. And he's already done it to a few other natural settings in various parts of the country. But his next location is going to be the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument, which is right here close to Ashland. And so he contacted the university and asked them to recommend to him students who were like both proficient in outdoorsmanship and media production, which is something that I fit the niche for. And so I got word of this. And
Keegan.
yeah, that's what I self-ascribe as being my thing. So I was like, hell yeah. So I signed up for it, and he got back to me, and he ended up watching the Cornucopia project, and he liked it so much that he asked me to make a similar thing for him for like this project. He wants me to follow him out into the forest for like 7 days and film him making this project, as well as just help him with the logistics of the project itself, and then edit together something with the typical thing I do with the voiceovers and the whatnot, and give it to him for whatever purposes he has in mind for it. So that's a pretty exciting thing, but he needs to give me a deadline on when he wants that edit finished by, or else it will go on forever. Because like that's what I do as well. Like I just keep going.
It's so hard.
And then spend long periods of time not working on it because I don't know what I want to do, and then I have to like think of the new idea. It's like I need some pressure to get me going on that. So I feel that.
Hard. It's so hard to like motivate yourself. Like I'll run into that. Like I'm at the point with mixing the Berries album that it's like I won't work on it for like a week, and then I'll go in and work on it and maybe have a really productive, couple days on it after that. But it's like, I don't know. It's really hard to put that pressure on yourself.
Totally. Yeah. You as well have an exciting opportunity to work with cryptic, mysterious, faraway artists. If you want to talk some about all of that deal.
Yeah, I have the opportunity to go and be an intern at a recording studio in Tornillo, Texas called Sonic Ranch that I'm very excited about. I'm going to be leaving to go out there on July 1st, and I'm going to go just be an intern there indefinitely. I'm going for a month at least, but it might stretch out to be longer than that. I have a feeling that it will. I don't know how long, but yeah, I'm going to go out there and be bestowed some knowledge.
That's a great way to learn that sort of stuff.
Totally. That's actually, you met her the other night, Shayna. Oh, I have her business card actually. I can remember her. I forgot her last name. I've known her for a while. Shayna Lerner from Oakland, the Oakland band Stranger Than Fact. They're great. Go check them out. She just stayed at my house the other night, and Keegan and I were hanging out with her.
Yeah, she was cool. Great to talk to.
Yeah, and she was talking about that too. Just that the best way to learn really anything, in this case audio like production, but the best way to learn anything is just get dropped into the environment and just like you'll sink or swim kind of.
It's always what I'm saying about my time working for Charles Douglas at RVTV was like that was the most educational experience of my life, and like he didn't even necessarily go out of his way to teach me that much. It was just like he showed me what I needed to know and then would answer any questions that I had. And other than that, it was just following the dude around for 9 months. I learned everything I know about television production at this point. Like I already knew a good deal about cameras and some about audio and like the basics of how those things work, but I really knew nothing about like live streaming or whatever. And now I know like, I wouldn't say a lot, but a whole lot more than I did.
Totally.
And like that, I didn't learn any of that in school. Like I took the classes that should have hypothetically taught me the things that I've learned there, and I didn't like learn anything really. Nothing stuck.
Totally.
But following a guy around for a good couple months or like a couple of years would be more ideal.
Totally.
You know, you will become an expert in whatever you're doing rather quickly.
Because you're like solving actual problems. It's like different in a classroom where they're like, here's how you put a filter on something or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Whereas at RVTV, it's like you're working with people who are like, hey, I need this thing to happen, and there's actual stakes.
Yeah, solving real problems is big.
I think that helps a lot with that kind of thing.
Totally.
So yeah, I'm very excited about the internship. It's gonna be wild. I grew up in Southern Oregon, and so yeah, I've spent 23 years here. I'm very excited to go do something else.
Something outside of here.
Somewhere outside of here, yeah.
So you've never left Southern, or I mean, I know you've left Southern Oregon, but you've never really left Oregon?
No.
Or the West Coast anyway?
No, I was born in Medford, actually, and then I moved to Rogue River when I was like 3, and then lived there till I graduated high school, and then I moved to Ashland, and I've lived here for 5 years, and now I'm graduating college, and I'm going to move to Texas.
Wow.
For a little bit. It's pretty wild. I am I am really actually excited to not be in Southern Oregon anymore. I'm like, I don't know why I've stuck around this long.
It's a good place. It's comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's comfortable. And I've always been bitter about that too. I've been like, God, everyone just sticks around here because it's comfortable, but then I've found myself doing the same thing. So I really need to just like kick myself in the ass and go out and do something new.
Break free. That's so interesting because we've discussed this, but to me, Southern Oregon feels like the new frontier. Like, because I grew up in Portland, and my opinion of it came to that I could never be anything in Portland because everyone already is something there. Like every niche is full, and especially what I am, like a media guy, like, you know, you can't find that unique of a role for yourself there. Like you could obviously get work, like running around doing like stage grunt stuff for as much as you want. Like that kind of work is plentiful. If that's what you want to do, then there you go. But in terms of trying to like be someone unique in any way, it felt like there was no room for that in Portland. Like, I want to have an impact on it, just even the local sort of environment around me. And then moving to the small area, it feels like if I can find a role to fill, then like it'll all work out really well, and I'll actually feel like I'm doing something larger than myself, which is a feeling that's very important to me.
Totally. Yeah, it's hard to do. It's but it's also hard. I mean, the flip side of that is like being someone who has lived in Southern Oregon for forever. It's really hard to like. I mean, it's still hard to be it's hard to be like an important person anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
But it's still hard to have an impact. I mean, it's maybe not as hard to have an impact locally, but it's like the flip side. Like you can be, if you live in New York City or something, just to use that as an example, you can be like a moderately locally popular band in New York and like, but still have like a shitload of fans like everywhere else. You know what I mean? Whereas in Southern Oregon, it's like, it's not a monumental effort to be like the biggest band in Southern Oregon. It's not easy, but it's, you know, it's not as hard as it would be in obviously like New York or something, but that doesn't necessarily translate to like anything else anywhere else. So, and I think that I'm using a band as an example, but I think that applies to most things. Maybe the film industry would be different here because it seems like there's a lot more of that going on.
It's all about like figuring out what kind of fame you want, if fame is what you're after, or just recognition or anything like that. And like when I was younger, I used to think a lot more about being like actually famous and having like a huge national or global following. Like those are always the fantasies. But then it turned more realistic for me, and I've realized that it would be satisfying to me to just have like a local recognition. Like, you know, this program here, I would probably consider it local, at least to Oregon, but probably more so even just to Ashland, because like a lot of what gets talked about is Ashland centric. And like that's cool to me. The like feeling that you're a part of a community, and even if you're not known outside of that community, you have your needs met. You have that thing met. Like everything is going well for you. People are you know, providing for you because of the role that you're filling, and that's, I think that's super satisfying feeling.
Yeah, that is satisfying, and I think that's like better. I think everyone should just strive for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that the world moves more in that direction. Like I have hope that that's actually how things are going to sort of start to pan out a little bit more. But you know, it's also hard. Like, I don't know, even that can be hard sometimes. That's one of the reasons I'm leaving Southern Oregon, is because it doesn't necessarily feel like there's like a place for me in this community.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like people don't really want what it is that I can provide. So I'm excited to go elsewhere and try and find that.
Totally. Yeah, and a place like Eugene would probably do you pretty well with what you're doing.
Exciting.
Like, and that is also just sort of the thing, is like, it can't be anywhere. Southern Oregon works well for me because like the type of thing that I like to do is something that is facilitated here. Like, as a fallback, I can always just work for the university. Like, you know, that's a thing. Like, and that's not a thing in a lot of places where like there's a fallback for whatever you're doing. But like Southern Oregon and Ashland are just sort of large enough that every industry exists here at some level. You can like merge into it, but every segment of those industries is like the small version of it, and so it makes it like really friendly and easy to like get involved with on a deep level, basically as deep as you want to get in on it. It seems like you can just like give your time and people will facilitate that. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, it is. And like the fact that there's I don't know, like you're just walking down the street, like I take that for granted, that you can walk down the street and like run into people you know and just be like, oh hey, what's up, how's it going? Like that's just incredible.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna miss that. Damn. Yeah, I'm gonna miss Ashland a lot.
I'm sure you'll be back to visit.
Oh, for sure, I will.
It's
too many people here that I will miss to not come back ever.
Yeah, even when I moved away from it, I still was like incredibly drawn back. It's like, oh my God, what a gorgeous place.
Yeah, no, it's great.
And then of course the number of people in the Rogue Valley who don't live in Ashland but just like come into Ashland for various things all the time.
Totally.
Like, what a place to be.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good egg.
Like this park.
Yeah, no, this is great.
It's just like
there's so many little parks like this in Ashland too. It's great.
That's what I found about it. Oh my God, that's a huge bug.
Oh, hey. Hey, boy. There's a large bug that just landed on my arm. Oh, I guess he went away. All right.
Did you ever hear back from that guy who you were talking to from the podcast, the producer that you reached out to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I sent an email. I was listening to a podcast, so this is very meta. I love it. I was listening to a podcast. It's called Hanging Out with Audiophiles. I don't remember the guy's name that runs it, but there was this producer on there that I really like named Andrew Sarlo, and he's just like, he's the shit. He's done production for like Nick Hakim and Big Thief, and I think Hand Habits is a band, and yeah, just he's done a bunch of shit. But and he just really like, I don't know if you have this, but like, do you listen to, I feel like there are people that do this and people that don't. Do you listen to a lot of like interviews with people you admire, or like podcasts about topics that you're into?
Yeah, it depends on what it is and also the mood that I'm in, if I feel like listening to podcasts, because sometimes I really don't. Like, I get like burnt out on them super hard. But yeah, but usually not things that are related to what I'm actually doing, because to me, I'm trying at least to have an extremely broad understanding of things in the world. Like, I don't need to be a super expert about any one thing. Like, I just would like to know generally about a lot of things, and so that's usually what draws me in, is like just some sort of new subject, or a subject that I know I have interest in but don't know very much about. Yeah. I'll then like get in on that if someone is being interviewed. Like, especially the Joe Rogan show is probably the one I listen to the most.
Yeah, it's really broad.
That's like the most like simple format of that, where it's just like, here's a guy and now we're gonna talk, and it's raw talk. Yeah. And he's just gonna talk about whatever, spew about all the things that they're interested in, and like you gain so much from those types of conversations, like listening to them. So yeah, like I listen to things that I'm interested in, but like a very low amount from like actually like media people. Usually it's like other topics like science or society stuff, just to like know about it, because then I feel like that sort of can double back, even if it's a long-term thing, into like the media that I make. It all kind of enriches it. Yeah, just enriches it, and like it's a great way to find like new topics of interest that can be turned into documentaries.
Totally.
I think that works well if you're making like nonfiction work, is that what's more important is having an education about other things other than what you're doing.
But you can then draw on to make your films better. That makes sense.
Because you really don't need to know a lot about like movie making to make documentaries. Like they're pretty simple. And, you know, some of the best documentaries are incredibly raw, like just footage and voiceover, and like you can learn to do that in a few days or a day even, just with YouTube tutorials, and get some equipment or rent some equipment, and you're good to go. Like it doesn't take all that much to actually do. The hard part about it is like understanding a topic enough that you are comfortable making a documentary about it.
Yeah.
And then it's like good to know a lot of different things about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
It's like a wide base. Because like that's helped me with the Alvor Desert. Like you go there and it's a big flat expanse of lifeless nothingness. It's like, what is there to talk about? And so for that one to have any information to actually share other than just like, look at this place, isn't it crazy? Like having like real interesting educational content in there involves like branching out a little bit and going like, well, who's the Alvor Desert named after? Like it's named after this guy. What was he up to in his life? It had nothing to do with that particular desert, but it's still an interesting story. And like, so researching really far into that will be like a major area of like interest in the film, that it has all this historical stuff really having nothing to do with the place.
When you're doing like one of those documentaries, if you're trying to learn, like how do you accrue that information about the place? Do you like do you do a lot of that research while you're like before you go, or was that stuff you learned while you were there, or is that information that you learned after?
So the way I've been doing it is because I usually end up filming these things rather sporadically. I have the idea for a long time, and then suddenly the time comes and it's like, oh, we could do it now, let's go now, and like we suddenly go. And so I've actually been rather unprepared for both the Cornucopia project and this one. I didn't research very much about the place ahead of time. And with the Cornucopia project, we learned a lot while we were out there, like learned about all these cool things. Like that's how we got the interview with Wild Bills. We just were told about all this stuff. But we probably would have done better if we had researched things ahead of time and had like real objectives. And same thing with the Alvor Desert. Like there's stuff out there that actually would have been good to know about ahead of time to go check out, but we just hadn't like researched it in depth enough. And so in the future, the way I'd ideally do it is like have a bunch of research to draw on before I go out there.
That seems like, but I could also see that might like bog you down or something too. Like I was gonna say that seems like it would be really helpful, but then also it's like maybe there's something cool about the way that you like just go and are just like, we're just gonna fucking walk across the desert, or you know what I mean? Like where it's a little more impulsive, and that might be a little, or like off the cuff or something, and that might lend something to it too. I don't know, they're different approaches.
The vibe we're always after is trying to go and just have an adventure basically, and film the whole thing, and then come home and figure out what we want to do with it. That's always been the way that it's done, and it works out. Like there's always something cool to report on, like historically or scientifically about a place. But like one thing I've wanted to do that I haven't had the chance to do is like on location information spewing, like being able to like stand next to a thing and tell you about what it is.
This is what it,
Right, that would be so cool, but we've not had that opportunity, mostly just from a lack of ahead of time research to know what's there that we should like make sure we specifically arrive at to stand next to then talk about. Would be very useful. And we have actually, like Kenny and I have been doing that with Birding with Kenny now, where like we started by just going and filming a bunch of birds, and then coming home and sitting down and organizing the shots, and then making up some voiceovers and like finding scientific information about the birds that we wanted to talk about, blah, blah, blah. But now we've been doing more of a thing of like, Kenny has just a big wash of information in his head now. He's like getting very good at biological identification.
That's awesome.
And so he has that ability where he can just be like, oh, that fern there is like sage. I can't remember what it was that we actually identified in the field, but he was able to like stoop down next to it and be like, this here is this bush, and here's why it's like this, and it was a poisonous thing, like you shouldn't eat it, it'll kill you in a shitty way.
Wow.
And like those are really cool segments where he can like pick up the plant and be like, isn't that cool?
Totally.
And then we've been doing that also, like going to the science lab here at SOU, where they have like all the bird specimens, and he can like pull them out, and he knows a lot about them, so he can just hold them there and tell you about it.
Totally.
And that's like a huge quality boost to that show. And I'd like to be able to bring that into my like longer form documentaries, the things that I'm making myself.
Yeah, that seems like it would be that'd be fun for the audience member to watch. I also do like the vibe of like, I don't know, it kind of shows different layers when like you do the thing in front of the green screen where you show like the map and you know you sort of do a little more narration and stuff. I think that sort of helps with like it makes it more cinematic, which I think sometimes is fun too.
Because that's the weak point in the Cornucopia project to me, is that the whole thing is voiceover and nothing but voiceover.
Yeah,
like
totally.
there really isn't a moment in the movie where any information or even dialogue is shared with the audience in a super intentional way that like carries the story
Oh, really?
along. Like every story moment is accelerated by me then going like, we then proceeded onward, and like that works well a lot of the time, and like it works for that movie, it gets you through it, but it's like what you said, more cinematic. If there's like someone talking to you on screen, it's something to look at, and kind of draws you in. And then also with the way that I'm doing that like green screen stuff, it's sort of entering over the shot and being like, listen up, here's some information. It's like an intention drawing thing. Like if you space out on it, which I think is easy to do with the Cornucopia project, like space out and not realize what you're watching for a long period of time. Having like someone almost literally enter frame again and be like, information time.
You're like, oh yeah, what?
It brings you back into it. Hopefully, that's the idea anyway. And that was like the improvement I'm making between the Cornucopia project and the Alvor Desert.
Nice.
And hopefully, what I'll do with this Mark Tribe thing as well. I really want that to be good for Mark Tribe.
Yeah. Is he gonna film it, or are you guys gonna both have cameras? Or
he just told me to bring my own camera and film it the way I normally do it. Like, what he expressed to me is that he really liked the Cornucopia project and he wants something like that.
Wow.
And so I've like told Trip as well, like, you should bring your camera and film.
Oh yeah, because Trip's going too.
Yeah.
How many of you are there going to be?
I think there's going to be 4 of us plus Mark Tribe, so it's a team of 5. There might be more, but I met 2 of the others as well, and that's all I've met. So I think that's it.
Did you know them before?
No, they seem like chill people, but
are they from here?
Yeah, they're also they're like one of them is an OAL student, and then the other one is an RCC student, but they're also like very into outdoorsmanship stuff.
That's cool.
But they don't really know as much about cameras. They're mostly coming as like the pack mule role.
Oh, okay,
is like what he described himself as. He's like, well, I don't know much about cameras, but I can be a pack mule.
Yeah, I'm just
all
gonna be
day
here
long.
and do it.
Yeah,
totally.
So,
go on an adventure.
So it's kind of a mix. Like it's Trip and I who have the like media knowledge, and then it's these other 2 people who have more like outdoor knowledge probably than I do. Like they're OAL people.
That's
and
sick.
they just know more than me. But yeah, so I told Trip I think he should film as well, just so that there's a variety of shots. So I think it'll be the 2 of us sort of doing all that.
Worm guy.
We got a little inchworm here. This is the beauty of shooting outdoors.
I know, I'm getting like bugs and stuff all over the place. I love it. He's like orange. Whoa! He's such a fast incher. You go, little guy.
Oh.
Usually those things are green. That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually an inchworm. That reason. Little caterpillar.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah.
That's rad. That's gonna be a really cool project. That's so funny that it seems to have just kind of like fell into your lap.
Kind of did.
Like, and it's right up your alley.
I got really lucky because Trip heard about it first, and then he told me about it. He was like, yo, this artist named Mark Tribe is gonna be in Oregon. He's a cool guy. Like, you should hit him up and try and get on this. So I was like, yeah. And basically just like told Trip, like, yep, like tell whoever needs to be told I'm like in, and give him my email. Because like I didn't have any contact to reach out to, so it was sort of up to Trip, and Trip came through. He like gave my info to somebody, and then they reached out and were like, yo, Trip told us about you, and
that's awesome.
We want you to talk to Mark Tribe, and then Mark Tribe was like, I want you so bad. Like, I'm like,
that's
oh
so
my
rad.
gosh, it feels so good.
Yeah.
And then it's
high demand.
Yeah, that high demand feeling that like I've been so successful in the past year getting like good work has been lending a lot to the feeling that like, what am I doing in college right now?
Yeah.
Why am I here? Like,
I know, dude. That's I felt that way the last year or so.
Like, I could be possibly successful, or if not like super successful, I feel like I could at least survive at this point. Like,
yeah, without it,
I could just do like what we were talking about with what's her name from the band that was at your house?
Shayna.
Yeah, Shayna. When we were talking to her, and she was talking about like union work. Where
Oh
you're
yeah,
just, like,
working for the audio union or
right,
whatever.
and like there's unions like that for all of the media industry roles that you can have, where you just like
Yeah.
slap your resume on a pile and then wait to be called. And like
That's
if you
awesome.
live in a high demand area, then someone calls you. Like that is something I could easily fall back on now with
Totally.
the type of work experience I've gotten. Like I'm totally qualified to help carry boxes full of cables around and
Yeah.
shit like that. And that's money.
Totally.
Like that would be survival.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't even pay terribly. Like
Really?
it's okay money. It, you know, a lot of people in it say it isn't very good money because like once you get used to being paid a certain amount, it feels like much less.
Feels
But
like crappy money.
from
yeah.
where I'm sitting in college, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's okay money. That's
That's
fine
fine
with
to
me.
me.
Like,
I don't-
hell yeah, it's better.
I
Than,
don't
it's
care.
a little better than minimum wage. Like
Yeah.
anything better than minimum
Totally.
wage is like something to me.
Is a bonus.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can live very simply, especially because I already have a lot of the expensive tools I need to like do my more passionate stuff. Like
Totally.
I don't need a whole lot of money to get by. So that's been the bind. It's like I could go and potentially do some cool work and at very least just easily get other work.
I know, dude.
So it's been a bind. Like the whole getting a degree thing feels harder and harder to justify every day, but at the same time every day I theoretically get closer and closer to a degree. And then you get into that whole sunk cost thing where it's like, well, shit, like it would be a huge waste to pull out at this point.
That's like I did that for so long. I was like deliberating about like whether I should like transfer schools or like if I should just like take a break from college. And by the time I sort of started getting to a point where I could make a decision, it was like my junior year or something, and I was like, whatever, fuck it, I'm just gonna finish. And you know, I don't regret having done it at this point, but we'll see how I feel on the other side.
Yeah, because that's also the fear is I have this thing like I could drop out and go into just professional life and do just fine, but then I just see it's probably just because of this particular school, but I see so many like older students who did exactly that.
Yeah.
Like they didn't go to college earlier on and now they're like back at the age of 50 because they're like,
Yeah.
well, I'd like to move up.
Yeah,
And
totally.
like if that's sort of an inevitable feeling that I will one day get, then I wouldn't want to have that regret of like, oh, why didn't I just finish? Like
Yeah.
it was a year.
It seems like everyone I know that's older that like didn't finish feels that way.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone, but also like things were different maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Totally.
So, but yeah, I don't hear anyone that's like in their 40s or 50s that actually regrets going to college.
Yeah.
Granted, I live in a small area and so I'm sure there are people out there that do feel that way. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like something that most people think is a good decision in the future, like once it's been a while. But damn, it definitely does not necessarily feel that way in the moment.
Yeah. I just really strongly feel the thing of like paying the most for college, getting the least out of it. Because a
Yeah.
degree is just less valuable now than it was a
Yeah.
bit ago. And then also it's more expensive than ever before. And at least at this school, I don't feel like the education quality is high enough to justify the cost.
Yeah, it's like the thing that pisses me off about this school is it's not even like it's not connected. It's
Yeah.
like you don't get work from the school. Like
It's hard to do that, yeah.
yeah, like I was talking to one of my professors in the EMDA department the other day, and I was telling him about I can't remember who it was. It wasn't the other day. This was like 2 months ago or something. But and they were like, oh, I was telling them about my internship, and they were like, oh, did you get that through the school? And I was like, no, dude, like I got that on my own time of just like hustling, sending people emails. Like this school does not teach you how to do that,
Yeah,
and it's kind of a shame.
right.
There's so many kids graduating that are like unprepared for the real world and who are just gonna get like their asses kicked.
Yeah. Yeah, there's very little teaching is like how do you actually get gainful employment? Because like it's easy to get a job in like sort of the low tier jobs where it's just like
Yeah.
the work that the roles that absolutely need to be filled in
Yeah.
society, like those are easy to get.
Yeah.
But it like in terms of employment that is what I talked about, like larger than yourself, where you feel like you're working on something that's like important,
Creatively
on some scale.
fulfilling, yeah.
Yeah, like and fulfills you. You have to have like this weird gusto to like get into any of those
Yeah.
things. Like there's always someone to impress in a very particular way.
Yeah.
And like that isn't really taught. And like my
Maybe
method
it can't be taught.
it might just be that it's something you can't teach. It's a personality thing that you just have to have that like perfect type of charisma to like
Yeah.
charm the
To
person.
land
And
your thing.
it's
yeah.
also like a big factor is just a matter of luck, like right place, right time,
Totally.
right person.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
like, so you might be right. It might just be something that can't be taught. But I feel like
yeah.
there must, like, I just actually was in a class that was all about job interviewing, and like it purported to be a class about how to get hired. And I
Yeah.
felt like none of the information was useful. It was so
Yeah.
formulaic. I'm like, this isn't how human interactions work. Like,
Yeah.
and also, it might work in that way for some industries where like you go and you sit down at a panel interview and they want you to answer the questions in super specific ways.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking the whole time, like, if I really genuinely answered the questions these ways, I'd be lying about who I am. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
lying about myself. I'd be bullshitting them, and then
I
in the
know.
end, it wouldn't.
They
work
can
out very
tell.
well.
Like people
Yeah.
can tell when you fuck with them in that way.
Right. Like, people aren't a bunch of robots following a protocol,
I
which is
know.
kind of what that class turned things into.
That's like, yeah, that's how it feels like a lot of time, like the academic world views the professional world or something is like a lot of people that are just making decisions based on like empirical data, because that's what you do in college, but it's not really how the professional world works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just, I don't know, excited to be done.
Totally.
Get the fuck out of here and do something different.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very cool.
Yeah, just a change of scenery, especially if you've been in the one place for 23 years.
I know. That was the first time I've said that out loud, was earlier in this podcast. And I was
23 years.
23. Holy fuck.
Yeah, I have not
Yeah.
had that because I, moved away from Portland.
that's
and, like,
great.
This all feels fresh.
Yeah, I was going to, I would have gone to U of O, which is funny because now I'm thinking about moving to Eugene,
Yeah.
potentially. And so it's like, it's funny, it's like maybe I would have been better off, but it's also like, but I'd probably be in significantly more debt
Yeah.
if I had gone to
It's more
Eugene.
expensive for sure.
So to go to U of O, so I don't know.
Also, just life would look different. Like, I think about that a
Yeah.
lot. That, like, I barely came to SOU. It was sort of a whim decision. Like,
Yeah. Mine too, honestly.
I applied for only SOU, and I had only taken the ACT. I wasn't very serious about trying to get into college.
Yeah.
And it all just somehow worked out. Like, SOU was being
SOU
generous
just doesn't
and-
give a shit. They're like, all right, you
Yeah.
applied.
and they just accepted me, and so it's like, all right, and so I came on down here. But it's like, thinking about how close of a decision that was, like, life could have gone such a different branch off, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think that would have been more advantageous. Like, if I had just like gone and worked for Intercom and been their photographer, like, all of that was set up prior to me getting accepted and deciding to go to SOU. Like,
Yeah.
I could have followed that path and like been a photographer for that company. Who knows where it would have led
Totally.
after that? Like,
Totally.
it could have gone horribly or it could have gone well. Like, who knows?
When it's also like, we haven't lived enough life to know whether or not that would have like worked out in
Yeah.
the long run or not.
Yeah.
You know, you might be, if you had done that, you might now at this age be like, oh shit, like, you know, having some like quarter life crisis or something and be like,
Totally.
damn it, I need to go back to school or whatever.
Right. Because, like, I wouldn't have discovered that I, like, enjoy working for TV at
Yeah,
all. Like, I wouldn't
totally.
have learned any of the shit that I know about TV.
Yeah.
And, like, that's just such a whole thing. So it's like looking at the results that have come forward, even with how, like, sort of shitty the experience has been in many ways.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I wouldn't reverse this. Like, I kind
Yeah.
of like where I'm at, and I can't guarantee that any alternate realities, so to say, would be better
Totally.
at all.
I'm a firm believer that like you need to like, even though I can get lost in that sometimes of like, yeah, like you said, like would the alternate reality of me picking this other path like have yielded, like would I be happier now or would I be closer to like where it is that I eventually want to be or something? But I kind of believe that like you just especially at this age, everything's just a learning experience, and like me coming to SOU and taking, which in my mind that was like the easy route, was coming to Ashland versus moving to, like I almost moved to Nashville, or I almost like I there was a school there that I really wanted to go to called Belmont that was a music university, but I think that if I would have gone, and like it's easy to romanticize the idea of like if I had done that I'd be so much further along or whatever, but it's like that easily could have just kicked my fucking ass,
Yeah.
and I could have fallen further backwards.
Totally.
And then, you know, moved back and ended up going to SOU anyways, but just be like a year or 2 years behind.
Right.
So you never know. I think it's best to just think about it in like, yeah, well, I've learned lessons and just moving forward.
Totally. Yeah, life is linear. You're just
Yeah.
going one direction, moving through it. So
Yeah.
there's like no sense in really dwelling too much on those like close call decisions that almost got made.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah.
Because ultimately you made the one that you made, and like there must have been some reason for that.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to romanticize other like pathways or something, but it's like you made that decision for a reason, so just stick to it.
Yeah. It's fun being able to trash talk university on this show.
Oh my god!
Because I feel
we have a platform.
I feel
sort of.
such a sense of liberation because I see like a lot of my friends at the Digital Media Center. They make like content in a lot of similar ways, but it's always associated with the university. That's something that they seem to care a lot about.
Yeah.
Like
this is for our podcasting class.
Right.
Yeah.
First
One
day
pillar of this fucking show is that we get to talk shit about SOU.
Yeah, we can just talk all the shit we want. That's always so much fun.
I know, I love it. I'm really excited to not have that, like, not sort of have to worry about that anymore. Like, you know, that like it's fun, and it's like it's a way to just like, you know, blow off steam as to like, oh, my college is a piece of shit, and like fuck this place. But I'm excited to move on and actually not have that kind of like negative attitude or whatever.
Yeah.
Even though it is fun to do.
That's the thing. I was talking with my mom about this the other day where I was like, the amount of anger and frustration I feel on like a daily basis because of the university is like a whole factor in why it's like, should I be doing this? Like, is this any way to live? Like, I just feel all this like angst all the time towards them. Like,
that's also probably just
this
like
is so frustrating.
Age. Yeah.
And like maybe I'd feel that about any institution that I had to work.
I know.
Under.
I wonder about, is that a thing? Do most people fucking just hate their schools?
It might be. I don't know. Write in. Let us know if you hate your school.
Yeah. Do you hate your school? Like, do people? Like, I know like some people that like went to Reed up in Portland, and they would talk a bunch of shit about Reed, but some people love it there. Yeah. I mean, some people love SOU too.
I grew up next to Reed, actually.
Really?
Yeah, my house is like 3 blocks from Reed College.
The Juniper played a house show in that neighborhood one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
like,
funny.
It would have been in 2017.
Eastmoreland or Reedwood?
I don't know what the name of the neighborhood is.
I feel like it would have been Reedwood if it was a house show. Eastmoreland is bougier. That's where I grew up.
It was weirdly bougie, though. It was, like, very odd.
Did it have a center, like, strip running through it of grass and trees? Was there a central boulevard running through the neighborhood?
No, it was like a cul-de-sac.
Okay, that's probably Reedwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, God.
Over on the west side of Reed.
Yeah, it
or
must
north side, I think. Northwest side.
I don't remember. I've still never actually been to the Reed campus, but I know that, like, everyone that lived at the house went to Reed, and when we drove up, my friend that was with us was like, oh, Reed's right over there. But I've still never been to the campus, but it was a weird show. I remember that was really fun.
The funny thing that always gets said about Reed by like people who live in that, like the kids growing up in that neighborhood would always talk about Reed, especially as we were like getting closer to the age where we'd go to college. We used to say like, oh, Reed College? Oh, yeah, the campus is beautiful. The academics, yeah, they're okay. And the drug problem is incredible.
Yeah, oh my God, dude. We showed up to this house show, and, like, all the kids were just, like doing Xanax. Like, when we showed, they were, like, offering us Xanax and beer and, like, pills and stuff. And it was just like, Jesus Christ,
they're off the charts there.
I've heard that.
It's still really weird going back and, like, being in that neighborhood as a kid who grew up in the neighborhood, but now also being, like, the same age as the college students there. Because there's still this feeling of separation. Like, there always was. Like, oh, those are, like, them, the Reed College people. But, I assumed that would go away when I was, like, the same age. Like, you just, like, walk onto the campus and just be like, hey, what's up? Maybe that'll be different. I haven't been back there in a few months. But as far as I know, like, Lewis and I went walking around and through there, and, like, the feeling of separation was very real. Like, that's a different culture of youth. The people who go to Reed College versus the people who go to, like,
very, like, weird...
School.
It seems like a very insular, kind of weird bubble.
Yeah.
It seems cool. I mean, I don't know. I've heard
the campus is gorgeous.
I've never been on that campus.
Oh, my God.
I heard that my friend Daphne went to Reed, and I remember, told me about how, so they planted a bunch of ginkgo trees on the campus there, but someone fucked up and planted, it must be the female trees are the ones that actually produce fruit, or it might be the male. I mean, I assume it's the female. I can't remember. But for ease of conversation, let's say that it's the female trees. But someone planted a bunch of ginkgo trees on their campus, but they fucked up and they planted a ton of female trees, which produce fruit. And the ginkgo tree fruit just smells like rotting flesh. It's like the gnarliest smelling thing ever. But all these trees have been like because they take a while to reach maturity before they start to produce fruit. So for the first 10 or 15 years or whatever, they were like fine. They were just normal trees. And then all of a sudden they started producing this fruit. But they were so big and there were so many of them that the school was just like, fuck it. And just left them. Yeah, and it's just like disgusting for like all of the spring and the beginning of summer. It's just like smells like shit all over the campus.
That's amazing.
I know.
Yeah, I haven't been there in like that season for a while. I'm going back up to Portland for a week right after graduation time. And then, yeah, I'm gonna go check out all those old spots.
Hell yeah.
It'll be nice.
That'll be sweet.
It's been like a long time now since I was in Portland, it feels like.
Do you go up very much?
Not really, because I didn't have a car until very recently. And so now I have a car, and so I'm like going up very soon now that I have a car. Like,
totally.
Hell yeah. And I probably will go up there a lot more frequently. Like now that I have a car, the whole state of Oregon is like open to me again.
That's a good
And
feeling.
it's just like, yeah, like whatever I need to go do, whoever I need to see, I can
just go do it on a weekend.
And like it's easy to do. Like
totally.
I have a car, and it's pretty fuel efficient at that. So like
that's awesome.
It's not a problem, and can handle terrain. Oh,
hell yeah.
Yeah, that car is a dream come true.
Thanks, Charles Douglas.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles, for selling me the car for such an incredibly low price. Even though it was every dime that I had. That was a funny feeling. Is I gave Charles all of my money.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, here you go. I have a car, but no money.
No money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it can go sometimes.
When I made all of that money working for him.
That's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't the one paying me, but yeah. Anyway, we should probably wrap it up because I got to get to work at 5, and we just passed 4:20. So
woo!
Yeah. Anyway, Josh, thanks so much for coming along.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for
It's
having
been good
me.
having you. It's been good knowing you. I'll miss you incredibly.
Oh, I'll miss you
depart.
too.
Yeah.
I'll be back though. I'm not leaving forever.
Cool.
Leaving for a time, but
I'll stop in at Eugene. It's a convenient halfway point.
Hell yeah.
Sweet. All right, my man. Thanks for joining. Thank you for watching, or listening rather, to the ShoeBox Show. This has been Keegan Van Hook and Josh Stirm, and I'll see you whenever the next time is that I see you.
Woo.